Am I the asshole for telling my friend that I'm sorry her parents don't love her as much as mine love me? I, 22F, have a friend named Amy, 22F, who I met in college. Currently we are in our last semester of college. I live alone, but she shares her apartment with 2 other people. We never really spoke about our finances much, but I know that both of our parents currently pay our rent. The issue started when we talked about our future plans. I told her that I'm probably going to get a job and do my master's at the same time so that I can save up a little but also to finally have my own money to spend on some things that I love and to travel. She laughed at me and asked me what kind of salary I expect while working part-time to be able to afford all that. I shrugged and said I didn't have any expenses that I need to cover really, just food and that's it. She looked shocked and asked me about rent and stuff and I said NY parents will be paying for it. She then went on a rant about becoming an adult, how she can't wait to be independent, how she doesn't want to take money from her parents and stuff like that. For the most part one tried to nod my head and listen to her, but then she said something like, I'd feel like a bad daughter if I were you. And that really made me feel embarrassed. My parents want to pay for my apartment, they can easily afford it and I'm not the type of person to be ungrateful for it. I spend a lot of time with them, I know they don't lack money for anything, they travel, own their house, have a good retirement plan. They don't mind paying for me and I don't mind taking it. We have a good relationship. I know this won't be forever and I don't expect it to be. Just a few years until I finish my degree and get a higher paying job. I got annoyed and told her to drop it. We can talk about something else, but she continued talking about how her parents want her to be a real adult, how I'll never want to be ambitious unless I struggle and just more and more nonsense. Not sure how important it is, but between the 2 of us, my grades are significantly better and I'm a few exams ahead of her in terms of passing this semester. I just cut her off and said, well, I don't know, maybe my parents love me more than yours love you so they want to pay. I'm sorry for that. Can we now talk about something else? We didn't talk since and I do feel bad because I know that love has nothing to do with money and looking back, it's such a rude thing to say, but I just said it to shut her up because she was insulting me and calling me spoiled for no reason. I wasn't even the one to start this conversation nor did I probe into her finances. She was the one who kept it going. Ever since that day I feel a pit in NY's stomach and I really didn't want to insult her. Info, edit. Just adding some stuff because I feel like it may be relevant. I feel like Amy's intention wasn't genuine because she currently accepts her parents paying rent, food, utilities, everything. So do I. The conversation was about after college. I mentioned my academic success because she said I will never be ambitious when I try really hard. We also don't live in the USA, and parents' support isn't so uncommon. And lastly, while this may not convince people, I really do appreciate my parents and everything they do for me. I don't plan to leech on them, and this is something they know and that's what matters to me. She pushed you and was being rude and combative, however, you didn't have to engage in the conversation anymore. Once she refused to change the subject, you could have just left. While I understand what you said was out of retaliation, it wasn't necessary and was hurtful. Honestly, though, I don't think it's a huge loss to not speak to her. She doesn't sound like she's a positive person to be around. Not the asshole. She started throwing stones with, I'd feel like a bad daughter if I were you. And then you said, she continued talking about how her parents want her to be a real adult, how I'll never want to be ambitious unless I struggle. Sounds like you gave her a slice of humble pie. I really can't blame you for that. She wouldn't shut up insulting you so you shut her up. I would think she's the one who owes an apology. If she wasn't being so obnoxious and judgmental towards you wouldn't have snapped back. Not the asshole. She's trying to shame you for having parents who will support you past adulthood. She's probably been brought up with the belief that you don't burden your parents as an adult and she sees them paying for you as you burdening them. She did overstep a lot, should have shut her down earlier and said this conversation is over, and if she continued, you should have just walked away. You shouldn't hang out with someone who will go on a rant over something so minor and refuse to stop, even when you ask them to. This is just going to be a constant theme if you let it keep going. Everyone sucks here. Some people, like you, are lucky and have parents who can help them financially for the whole of their studies. Your friend's parents aren't doing the same for her and that's fine too. You are both making value judgments about something that is morally neutral. You are the asshole for your comment. It was hurtful and immature. Not paying or paying is not a sign of love, it's a sign of having money. I know that's how some people express love, but you know what I mean. And let's be real, of course your grade will be better thanks to the extra time and peace that you have. But at the same time the fact that you are able to live without the stress of being on your own is great for you and I don't think that you have to be ashamed of it. You are lucky, not all around you are as lucky, so don't be surprised that you will be facing some judgment. Just be grateful and understanding. But she is the asshole for pushing you deeper into the conversation. So ETAH I guess. Am I the asshole for telling my mom if she wanted photos of me as a kid she should have taken some? Sorry if this is confusing. I wrote it out in segments out of order, then tried to rearrange it to make sense. My 31F mother, 58F, falls in and out of hobbies a lot. Recently she has decided to get into scrapbooking. She realized though that she doesn't have many good pictures of me growing up to put in her scrapbook but plenty of my siblings, 37M and 37F. She asked if I could help her at all with that and I told her unfortunately I can't go back in time, and that if she wanted photos of me she should have taken some. She scolded me and said she was just asking if I remembered where they were, even if they existed. My parents have moved house multiple times. I've never even been to their current house. I've been physically disabled since birth, and their current place has stairs and I don't feel like dealing with that. But I just know that there aren't pictures of me. Even as a kid, I was aware that my family had less photos of me than my siblings. My brother and sister each had their own photo albums that were filled with photos. So many of them from when they were very little. Waned a bit when they got older. Many of the photos stopped being in the albums but instead were just in a box. But there were still photos for all my siblings' things including birthdays, Boy Scouts, basketball, band practice, and things that start with other letters too. I remember being 10 or 11 and asking my mom about why there was nothing for me and I got shrugged off. Something about just not having the time or energy for it. Which she does fall in and out of hobbies a lot so I understood but it still hurt little kid me. As far as I know, my parents have maybe 10 photos of me before the age of 16. Almost all taken at a distance as part of a larger family photo, so not really photos of me, in the same way my siblings have photos of them. Those aren't the only photos of me though. For a few summers as a kid, my parents would send me to a free summer camp for disabled children. When I was 14, one of the volunteers who I had a closer relationship with told me she was moving. She gave me a simple photo book to remember her by filled with dozens of photos of me and her at that camp. I don't look at the photos much. It's often a little hard emotionally to look at them, but I appreciate that she cared for me enough to gift me them. My boyfriend, 33M, says that what I told my mom is very mean and unfair. That my parents may not have been the best but they still love me and want to include me in their memories. He knows that those photos exist, he found them when we moved in together and flipped through them, and thinks I should have just given them to my mom, or made copies for her, instead of being petty. I don't want to, though. Mostly because they're not her memories of me. They're my memories with a woman who cared enough to take them. Edit. Okay, I didn't know how to properly respond to the people who are upset with my boyfriend but I am going to say that I am confident that he will not swipe these photos and give them to my mom. I only mentioned him in this situation because he voiced his opinion that I was being petty. In the past, there have been times where he's told me to tell my family to go fuck themselves, which I disagreed with and thought was too harsh. He's not always team my mom, and I don't think he'd go behind my back to help her. Not the asshole. The comment is a little harsh, but it comes from a place of honesty and what appears to be real pain at how you grew up. She needed to hear it and you need to work through your own issues, so get the hence to therapy. Not the asshole. You spoke the truth. You can't make photos she didn't take suddenly exist. Your boyfriend needs to accept that you are the one who lived in this situation and had to deal with the emotional aspects of it. He is allowed to voice his opinion but you absolutely get the deciding vote. Does he really think that your mother really wants photos of Op and someone she doesn't know together? I would expect she's hoping that Op can magic up some photos of OP's childhood with her or the rest of the family and that simply doesn't exist. Op, please do make copies of those photos immediately just for yourself. All it would take is a burst pipe or a house fire or a million other possibilities and those precious photos would be gone. Not the asshole. There's no lie in what you said, lol. If they wanted your childhood photos, they should have taken some back then. I've never even been to their current house. I've been physically disabled since birth, and their current place has stairs and I don't feel like dealing with that. That my parents may not have been the best but they still love me and want to include me in their memories. These two statements are incompatible. If they loved you, you would be welcome at their home. If you were welcome at their home, it would be accessible to you, and you would have been there. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You simply told the truth. And you were right, if she wanted more pictures of you she should have taken more. If she feels guilty because of this simple statement, that is her issue to deal with. And she needs to ask herself why she feels that way, not why you made the comment. As far as the album you do have, that is yours to do with as you wish. If you don't want to give it to your mother for her project, that is entirely your choice, for whatever reason you want. Not the asshole. And I also hate what your boyfriend said. Why is he not empathizing with you and your feelings? Or even trying to understand how you feel? He's being an efficient little problem solver, and not listening to what you're saying. That's not okay. Am I the asshole for snapping at my parents for treating me more like a second mom than their daughter? I 23F am the oldest of 3 siblings. My parents divorced when I was 6 and both of them moved on. My mom remarried, had 2 kids, then divorced again. My dad has a daughter with his current girlfriend. We're a big mixed family and we actually all get along pretty well. I love my siblings and I help with them a lot, especially when we have family gatherings. But lately it feels like I'm expected to do everything. My parents only really talk to me when they want something. Now I'm 3 months pregnant with my fiance and 2 weeks ago we had a family gathering. Like usual, I ended up watching all the kids. I didn't mind much until after dinner. I sat down with a brownie sundae when my little sister, one of my mom's kids, asked for a bite. I gave her some, but then she kept asking for more and I ended up giving her most of it. My fiancé said, "Okay, now leave your big sister some," and my dad responded with something like, "You should realize an older sister is like a second mother and that won't change even when she has her own kids." That hurt a little. I had really wanted that dessert but I gave it up for my sister anyway. And hearing my dad basically say that I'll always be expected to take care of everyone even when I have my own baby just hurt. My fiancé tried to brush it off and went to see if there was still some left, but my parents got defensive and started listing all the things an older sister should, expected to do. I snapped and told them they've never really treated me like a daughter. Just someone who's expected to help out all the time. I immediately regretted it and apologized, but my mom grabbed my sister and didn't talk to me for the rest of the night. My dad didn't say anything, but now he barely responds to my texts. I'm worried I messed up my relationship with my parents and siblings. Did I overreact or how do I fix this? You didn't overreact. Clearly, they pushed you one step too far. Given that you are pregnant, creating a gap between your new baby and your younger siblings in terms of expectations is not a bad thing. Your baby will take preference over your siblings, and especially young siblings will not like that given the way your parents have parentified you. Don't worry, they will come crawling back when they need something from you. This little game is just intended to have you feeling guilty and get you back into line so that they can continue to put upon you. Not the asshole. They want you to do their jobs as parents for them. My mom grabbed my sister and didn't talk to me for the rest of the night. My dad didn't say anything, but now he barely responds to my texts. See how long this lasts for. Eventually they'll want something. I'm worried I messed up my relationship with my parents. What relationship? Not the asshole. Especially now you have your own little one on the way. You owe it to yourself to set boundaries, and it sounds like it's long overdue. The fact that your dad even said that you're a like second mom is really messed up. You are not a second mom, you did not overreact, and you should take some space from them so they can see how much you do for them. It's time you focus on you and your own expanding family, and not being free childcare to your parents. You are the asshole to yourself. Why would you apologize to your parents when you're not in the wrong? It just makes them more entitled. It's time to build your boundaries and start saying no to their requests. Remember this, no one can make you feel inferior if you don't consent to it. Not the asshole. Your parents tried to guilt trip you. I'm worried I messed up my relationship with my parents and siblings. What relationship? Genuinely? You are an unpaid nanny whose only worth to them is what you can do for them. If you setting reasonable personal boundaries on what you are or are not willing to do for them, or calling them out for their very twisted views damages your relationship with them, then you never had a relationship to save. Learn boundaries, set boundaries, enforce boundaries, and if they no longer love you after that, they didn't love you before that. I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm glad your fiancé sounds like he has your back. Am I the asshole for refusing to give up my bedroom to visiting family members? I am a 30-year-old, single woman. In a few weeks I'll be moving to a new city in a different state for work. I'll be moving into a small one-bedroom apartment. A little over a week ago, my older brother, his wife, and I made a trip to an AITA store to check out some sofas. I was looking for a lightweight sofa for the new apartment, that could be easily dismantled and moved around by myself. I found a sofa that fit the bill. Both my brother and his wife also agreed it was a nice sofa and that I should get it online and have it delivered. A couple days later, my brother and I were talking about my move. At one point, he says, "You'd better buy a pull-out sofa for when we come to visit." I was surprised. I told him that I had already decided on the sofa that we saw in the IKEA store, but that I'd make up the sofa nicely and also get a sleeper mat to put in living room for them. My brother gets offended and says, "No, if we are coming to visit, you should either have a pull-out sleeper sofa or give up the bedroom." I get upset and tell him that it's really unreasonable to put demands on me as to what furniture I should buy or where I should sleep in my own apartment. Basically, we start to argue. He tells me it makes no sense to have a couple sleep in the living room in a one-bedroom apartment. He tells me I shouldn't be so attached to my bedroom. I tell him that I'm not the type of person to visit someone's house, either friend or family, and make demands about sleeping arrangements. Then the argument starts to get heated. He tells me I'm being an absolutist. He tells me I put too much emphasis on my own comfort. He tells me that I'm not being considerate of the fact that he's married. I tell him that I feel like I'm being penalized for being single. I already deal with family members who infantilize and condescend to me. They don't see me as an adult woman, deserving any respect. And so I'm always expected to compromise and be the peacemaker. Ultimately, after nearly an hour of arguing, my brother and I apologized to one another. We are both really close and neither of us likes to fight. Basically, my brother resolved that if he comes to visit by himself, he'll sleep on my sofa. But if he comes with his wife, they'll stay elsewhere. I told him that I would look at some sleeper sofas, since I hadn't put in my IKEA order yet. And also said that I respect that he and his wife may not stay over with me when they come to visit. Truthfully, I still feel hurt. Even though we put the argument to rest, I just want to know if I'm truly being a selfish and unreasonable asshole. Obviously, there's a logic to having a couple take the bedroom. But I am also tired of always having to compromise. Edit. Additional context, I do not live with my brother. I live on my own. But we live very close to each other 15 minutes away. We see each other all the time. Now, for the new job, I'll be moving 6 hours away. Also, I realize how ridiculous it is to have an argument based on hypotheticals and over a sofa, no less. All I can say is that we are Asian American and we grew up with emotionally immature parents. We grew up walking on eggshells. I think we both developed this strategy of gaming out and talking through every possible scenario. There's definitely more emotional baggage behind this conversation. As the single daughter, I've become the default caregiver to our boomer parents, who did not prepare for retirement properly. Our parents often stay with me, sometimes for months at a time. They do not stay at my brother's place, they don't like his wife. This will likely change now that I'm moving. The two of his siblings try to help our parents as best we can, financially and emotionally. We've always been close, probably because we grew up dealing with our parents' nonsense from such an early age. As adults, my brother is much better at maintaining emotional boundaries with our parents. I have trouble with that. I have a lot of guilt over asserting my own independence. Overall, though, he is really supportive of me. He's just obstinate from time to time and doesn't always see how difficult it is to be the daughter in our family and how often I make compromises for everyone else. Anyhow, this out-of-state move will definitely be a new chapter for us all. Not the asshole, it is ridiculous to place demands on other people's homes based on hypotheticals, and even more ridiculous to demand someone give up their own bedroom to accommodate a couple. If they'd like to be treated like paying hotel guests, then there are facilities elsewhere for that. Not the asshole. Hotels exist. Also, why is your brother so attached to your bedroom and needing it to sleep? According to Miss Manners, when hosting overnight guests, you are required to make them as comfortable as you can, but you are never required to give up your own bedroom to do so. Not the asshole. Guests don't get to make demands. When you invite people over for any length of visit, you decide what you are inviting them to have access to. They get to decide if it works for them. If it doesn't, they can decline the invitation, not demand more access. I would never want someone, other than my husband, to sleep in my bed or even spend time unattended in my bedroom. It's my personal space and I expect people to ask permission to enter it. I would also feel uncomfortable if someone offered me their bed. I think you are also accurate that this is a family dynamic issue. It seems others still see you as a child that should step aside so the adults can be comfortable. Not the asshole. You're the only one who can volunteer your bedroom to visitors. You could still get the sofa you like and maybe look into getting a nice air mattress for visitors. Much cheaper than a sofa sleeper that will rarely be used, and it would discourage long visits. Not the asshole if he doesn't like the accommodations when he visits. They have these amazing things called hotels.